When my mother passed away, the house did not just become quiet, it became hollow, as if the walls themselves had lost their purpose. The laughter that once drifted from the kitchen disappeared, the gentle hum of her evening prayers faded, and even the ticking clock sounded heavier, like it was counting moments we no longer knew how to fill. My father changed in ways I did not understand at first. He was always a strong man, steady and dependable, the kind of father who fixed broken chairs and broken hearts with equal patience. But after her funeral, he moved like a shadow of himself, speaking less, eating less, smiling not at all. I was 17, old enough to understand grief, but too young to understand loneliness, especially the kind that settles deep into the bones of a grown man who has lost his life partner. In the months that followed, I tried to be strong for him. I learned to cook simple meals the way Mom used to, even though they never tasted the same. I folded laundry carefully, trying to recreate the order she had kept so effortlessly. My younger sister cried herself to sleep some nights, and I would sit beside her, telling her stories about Mom's kindness, afraid that if we stopped speaking of her, she might truly disappear. Through it all, my father remained distant, not unloving but withdrawn, like he was carrying a burden too heavy for words. I thought time would heal him. Everyone said it would, but time, I learned, does not heal by itself. It only reveals what we are willing to face. About a year after Mom's passing, I began to notice something different. My father started coming home later than usual. He would check his phone often, stepping outside to take calls he never explained. One evening, as he sat at the dining table staring at a message on his screen, I saw a softness in his eyes that I had not seen since my mother was alive. It startled me. I felt confused, then hurt, and finally angry. A part of me believed that loving someone after my mother meant betraying her memory. I did not say anything at first, but my heart became restless with suspicion. One afternoon, while cleaning the living room, I found a small gift bag tucked beneath the couch. Inside was a delicate scarf and a handwritten note that simply read, "Thank you for reminding me that life can still be warm." My chest tightened. I felt betrayed, not because my father had done something wrong, but because I was not ready to accept that he might be moving forward. To me, it felt like infidelity, not in the traditional sense, because my mother was gone, but in my grieving heart it felt like he was stepping away from her memory. I carried that pain silently for days. The tension between us grew in small, almost invisible ways. I answered him shortly when he asked about school. I avoided sitting beside him during dinner. He noticed, of course. One night, he knocked gently on my bedroom door and asked if everything was all right. I wanted to tell him how confused I felt, how scared I was of losing the last piece of Mom we had left. But the words stayed trapped inside me, replaced with a simple, "I'm fine." He nodded, though his eyes told me he knew I wasn't. A week later, I saw him outside our gate, speaking to a woman I had never met before. She looked kind, maybe in her early 40s, dressed modestly, her expression gentle. When she noticed me watching from the window, she offered a polite smile. I stepped back quickly, my heart racing. That night, I confronted my father for the first time. My voice trembled as I asked him who she was. He paused for a long moment before answering. Her name is Amina. She volunteers at the community center. We started talking a few months ago. His honesty surprised me, but it did not ease the storm inside my heart. "Do you love her?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. He closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering courage. "I don't know yet," he said softly, "but I know she listens when I talk about your mother. She respects her memory. She doesn't try to replace her." Hearing that made something shift inside me. I had expected secrecy, maybe even denial. Instead, he gave me truth, wrapped in vulnerability. Still, I could not shake the feeling that my mother's place was sacred and untouchable. Days passed, and the distance between us felt heavier than ever. I began to reflect on my own pain and realized that much of it came from fear. I was afraid that if my father loved someone else, it would mean he loved my mother less. I was afraid that welcoming someone new would erase the memories we had carefully preserved. But one evening, as I watched my father sitting alone on the porch, staring at the sky the way he used to when Mom would join him with 2 cups of tea, I saw something deeper than my own fear. I saw loneliness, not the temporary kind, but the aching, persistent loneliness of a man who had shared his life with someone for over 20 years and suddenly had no one to share his thoughts with. That night, I walked outside and sat beside him. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The air was cool, and the stars seemed unusually bright. I remembered how Mom used to say that love does not end with death, it changes form. I gathered all my courage and whispered the words that had been growing in my heart for days. Dad, loving someone again doesn't mean you stopped loving Mom. My voice shook, but I kept going. She wouldn't want you to be alone forever. She loved you too much for that. He turned to me slowly, his eyes filling with tears he had been holding back for months. I was afraid you would hate me, he admitted. I was afraid you would think I was betraying her. I shook my head, even though a part of me had thought exactly that. I did feel that way, I confessed. But I think the real betrayal would be letting grief turn our hearts cold. He reached for my hand, something he had not done since I was a child. In that quiet moment, I realized that my whisper had not only changed him, it had changed me. I understood that love is not a limited resource. It does not divide when shared, it multiplies. My mother's place in our lives was permanent, woven into our memories and values. Nothing could erase that. Allowing my father to find companionship again did not dishonor her. It honored the love they had built, a love strong enough to teach us compassion even in loss. Over the next few weeks, my father introduced us to Amina properly. She was respectful and patient, never trying to step into roles that were not hers. She spoke of my mother with admiration, even asking to see her photographs and hear stories about her kindness. Slowly, the sharp edges of my resistance softened. I saw how my father smiled again, not the loud laughter of the past, but a gentle, hopeful smile. The house began to feel less hollow. There were still moments of difficulty. Grief does not disappear overnight. Some days, I missed my mother so intensely that I would retreat to my room and cry quietly. But now, instead of carrying my sorrow alone, I shared it with my father. We spoke openly about her, about our fears, about the future. That honesty became the foundation of our healing. Looking back, I realized that what I once called true infidelity was actually my misunderstanding of love. Infidelity is a breaking of trust and vows, but my father had broken none. He had loved my mother faithfully until her final breath. After she was gone, he was not betraying her by seeking warmth again. He was choosing life over despair. And in whispering those few simple words to him, I had chosen life too. Years later, when my father remarried in a small, modest ceremony, I stood beside him proudly. I carried my mother's photograph in my heart, knowing she would have wanted him to find peace. The greatest lesson I learned from that season of my life is that love requires courage, the courage to let go, the courage to forgive misunderstandings, and the courage to open our hearts again even after they have been shattered. If there is one message I hope anyone listening will carry with them, it is this. Love is not a competition between past and present. It is a journey that teaches us patience, sacrifice, and empathy. Holding on to memories is beautiful, but holding on to resentment only deepens our wounds. When we choose understanding over judgment, we give ourselves and others permission to heal. After Mom died, I thought our family would never feel whole again. But wholeness does not mean returning to what once was. It means building something new while honoring what came before. That night on the porch, when I whispered those life-changing words to my father, I did not just free him from guilt, I freed myself from fear. And in doing so, I discovered that the truest form of loyalty to those we love is not clinging to the past, but carrying their love forward into a future filled with hope.